And welcome to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins, and I'm here with my co-host, John Merrill. Good to see you again, buddy.
Good to see you, Ken. Always good to be with you.
Yeah, you've been driving. I ain't never seen nobody drive much. You do. But anyhow, it's good to see you back and go into another show. These are, folks, what we're doing here is this show goes in depth on subjects that you're hearing about. We're going to give you the whole meat. We don't just give you the bone. We're going to tell you about, go into the subject matter, and so you'll understand better what's going on in America. And John and I are the ones that are going to bring you that information. So let's start off. Don't even hesitate, John. Let's start off with a big thing that hit the news. Your president had decided to give $39 billion to students to pay their loan. And when I grew up and when I sent my daughter to school, I had to pay them loans back. What do you think about it?
Well, there's no doubt about it. And I tell you, it's such an embarrassing thing to think that the president, number one, believes that he has the authority. Number two, thinks that he can authorize all of these debts to be eliminated, reduced, redacted, or completely just done away with. It's really embarrassing because you think about all the people who paid all the money for certification to drive trucks or to learn how to cut hair or to style hair, or people who have taken classes in order to learn how to be morticians, or people who have learned a trade, how to weld, how to lay brick and things of that nature, paid good money for those things. And yet, when it comes to loan forgiveness for them, that's not even considered an option. You know, I saw a video of an interaction between a gentleman who lived up in New Hampshire and United States Senator Elizabeth Warren when she was running for president. Mm-hmm. And he asked her if the money that he had saved, that he had put aside to make sure that his daughter could go to college, was going to be returned to him now that she was going to grant loan forgiveness for all those people who had borrowed all this money to study basket weaving or art appreciation or music appreciation. And she said, no, absolutely not. You know, I don't know where these people think they get off trying to tell us that one job is better than another, or that one opportunity for learning or contributing to our economy or to society is better than the other. But when they start to say that because you were from a privileged environment and you actually received a loan and you were able to take that loan and go to college, that you are actually supposed to have that loan forgiven because you learned a little bit about art appreciation or music appreciation, but you didn't learn anything about working. You didn't learn anything about making a difference in society. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to our heritage. It's an embarrassment to the Republic as a whole. And I think people are tired of it, and I think you're going to see pushback beginning in March when the elections come around, and it's going to continue through November of next year.
I hope you're right, because I didn't suffer, but it was sending my daughter to college was a very stressful thing, because when you got to pay college, you got to pay them right now. There's no waiting or whatever. And it was
a sacrifice for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a choice that you and your family made.
And I saw the Warren piece that you saw. And at that time, I was thinking, I'm in the same category as this guy. You know, I already paid it, but it would sure be nice if somebody come up and give it to me. Give it back, say, here, you sent your daughter to college, she'll help society, I think. And I was trying to get into Biden's head. I used to be a Democrat years ago.
A lot of people have been saved.
And I just wondered, what's going on in the head up there that would make somebody do that and not think about the others, you know, what the effect it has on the other part. But it's election year, and that's all I could get out of it. It's all about getting the votes. And the people out there that's getting the money don't really care where it comes from.
Absolutely not. But you know, the thing that's the most embarrassing, Ken, is how many of those people that we're talking about actually think that the government just comes from the money. It reminds me of another situation where Stacey Abrams, who was running for governor of Georgia back in 2018, was questioned about food shortages. And she was really not concerned. And one of the reporters asked her, well, why doesn't this concern you? And she said, well, obviously, if we run out of groceries and run out of food, we'll just go to the grocery store and get some more. I mean, where do these people think that the groceries come from?
Well, I wonder if they see the cows back there in the dairy section, they're milking the cows back there or whatever, and the gardens back there and the vegetables. It's really, you say, are these people in charge of something? I hope they're not an Uber driver. I would hate to know that I'd get in the back seat of a vehicle and drove by Joe Biden, the salad woman, what they call it, Kamala Harris.
Right.
That woman I'm gonna get you one day, and I'm gonna do answer a question like she does. Transportation is something we need, because you go from here to there, you need transportation. So we like to transport because you have to get from this place to that. It's so stupid. I don't want to get up on that. Anyhow, on that, let's go to another subject here. We got a minute.
Well, before we go to another subject, I don't think we can leave this before we talk about how important it is to instill those values that you grew up with and that I grew up with and so many of our viewers grew up with, in understanding that when we incur or have a debt encumbered on us because we've made choices, then at that point we're going to have to remember that we're the ones that were responsible for that decision. We're the ones that are responsible for paying that debt, whether it's to the bank, whether it's to another institution, a credit union, whether it's to a friend or a neighbor, or whether it's to the United States government. And when we choose to abdicate our responsibility because we're too weak or because we're not where we need to be, we're putting America at risk. We'll talk more about this and other things when we return.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here, and we are, the subject we just had, I think everybody gets a piece of that, because so many people out there have, it's just like John was saying, you're going to buy a car and just make payments till you decide, I won't make payments anymore. The values that you're instilling into this next generation, think about what you're doing. The next thing I want to talk about, John, is a subject that is really nothing except that Long Island killer, serial killer. 10 years, and they found him by DNA from a pizza. And then we hear they can't find who brought the cocaine,
Right.
but they find 10-year pizza.
Sure.
So what have you been keeping up with that?
I have.
Okay.
And look, Ken, it's pretty clear. They know who brought the cocaine into the White House.
You think?
They know who was responsible for other decisions that have been made, and they know who's responsible for a number of other things that have happened, and they just don't want to introduce it because of the embarrassment that it would cause the president. Now, I'm not saying that that was done by Hunter Biden, because I don't know, but they know, and they've just chosen not to release and introduce that information to the general public. I can say this. I do think that what you were referring to earlier, Ken, is that we have two standards. We have a standard for the elite, for the people who are in power, and we have a standard for other people that are common people just like us that have to work hard every day and fight through the challenges that are introduced to us. And whenever that happens, it puts all of us in a difficult spot, because it makes people have distrust of the government and distrust of the judicial system. But I will say this about the topic that you introduced. I was so glad to see that this situation was finally resolved, and that those people are finally going to get justice for the loss of their loved ones.
And there's still more to come too. There's only 4 so far, but there's like 11 or 12 that was in that area. But the thing I was watching it was when I left home this morning. There was a story about it, and this guy, it made me think. My daughter and I was sitting there watching it. What does a serial killer look like? You look over the years, they've all had that. You would have never picked them out of a crowd.
That's exactly right.
And so, be careful out there who you. Now that's something I want to say that I didn't want I don't want to say Hunter Biden, the cocaine thing at the White House. I got it on here as another subject, but if they can find somebody 10 years from there, I've been to the White House, and you probably have too. There is no place that I was more checked from the gate coming in to run in a car. It had dog sniffers around the car. There's no way that I can see. They said there was no cameras, but they could check everybody that came through there that day into another part that would end up over there and have them on camera and have some trainees for the FBI just sit there all day, see whose body turned a different way when they went by the cubby. They didn't just throw it in there. Who knew that they could that there's a cubby hole there? I'm thinking that not Hunter. I'm thinking maybe a staffer in the press secretary's office. Any of those in those offices there. Privileged, go and come as they please. Got a badge. So anybody that worked in the White House could probably go in and out of there as they choose. But it's very interesting that you can find something like the pizza thing 10 years later, and you can't find if that would have been something else, anthrax or something else. It's a serious thing. You think it's just a Republican thing. It's not. That's whoever the president of the United States is. If people are watching what happens in America, and you see that you can put some cocaine in a cubbyhole, do you think you can put something else in there?
Absolutely.
So that's what bothered me about that. But anyhow, our Senator Tuberville is holding up the NDAA, the National Defense Service funds for the military. He's not letting some generals get promoted until they put an amendment to this bill where women in, say, Louisiana that don't allow abortions in there could travel at our expense to South Carolina or somewhere that would allow the abortion. Well, the Hyde Amendment that we had for years says no taxpayer funds would go to paying for abortion.
Correct.
Is that not into what they're doing?
It ought to be pretty clear, Ken, to all of us, but I think it's very important to note that Coach Tuberville has done an outstanding job of standing firm on his principles related to this particular issue. He's catching a lot of heat. He's catching a lot of flack. A lot of people have pushed back against him and said that he needs to acquiesce. He needs to just let things be, not worry about this particular situation. Very small number of people are actually impacted, but now his position is gaining momentum. And there's a number of people in the House of Representatives that are also standing up with Senator Tuberville and making sure that people know why he's doing what he's doing and that he's doing the right thing the right way. I'm very proud of Senator Tuberville. I'm proud of the stand he's taken, and I'm proud of the fact that he represents Alabama and the way we feel about this issue. We'll talk more about other topics of interest to you when we return.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America. And we are Brainstorming America. And we went to the break. John, we were talking about Tommy Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, and the abortion travel situation. Well, we got another thing in the military, the woke military. I remember my days, I'd see an officer coming toward me, and it'd be a lieutenant, a woman, whack during them days. Good morning, ma'am. You can't do that now. Because they tell you can't assume just because that person is dressed a certain way that it might be a woman. So you're not allowed to use good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am. They're taking all that out of there. And they're running people out of the military because of all the things a recruit has got to learn. is just imagine throwing that in there. How do I address this person coming toward me? You know, it's an officer, but it's like the story I heard when I first went in the military. This lieutenant's coming down to there, and the guy had just been in the Army for 1 day. And the lieutenant's looking at him, and the guy's got his hands in his pocket. And the lieutenant says to him, "Don't you recognize this uniform?" He said, "What are you grumbling about? Look what they gave me." So he didn't realize. So anyhow, that the diversity that they're doing in the military, like Berkeley, California or something. This is, I think it's going to affect our rating. I think it's eventually, they're already using that. They're having hearings about
Absolutely.
it. And so I think that Tuberville is right on the money. But one thing he is, whether you like him or dislike him, there's attacking him for being right. He's abiding by laws that have been passed by Congress already to say no tax dollars can be used in the performance of abortion. So putting somebody on a Greyhound or airline to fly them somewhere to get an abortion, that violates the law, and Tuberville's right.
No doubt about it. And you know, a lot of people are concerned that he is expressing his morals through his position. But if you're following the case specifically, you know he's following the law. And that's the real issue, is how many people are turning a blind eye to the law and what has been not just a practice, but has been on the books, codified for several decades. And so at this point, it's good to know there's at least one United States Senator who's interested in making sure that everyone is following the law.
Yep. I got a friend here that you probably know, Glenn Browder, used to be a congressman. And he was telling me one time that he was talking about morals and scruples. And when he went into office, he had a lot of dreams and things that he wanted to do for District 3. And I'm going to get to do this and bring this back to Dowie, or I'm going to bring this to Oxford. Or he gets up there and he finds out he's one vote. And he has to get 300 more from over here. And he goes up to the other congressman and says, "I need you to vote for my bill." And the guy says, "Yeah, I'm for the same-sex marriage." And if you know Glenn Browder, that ain't where he is.
Right.
And so he has to make moral scruples and all that comes forward, whether you want to or not. Because even if it's not something you're championing, you can't go against what you're told your people. The people in Alabama are not for that.
Right.
So he's got to get that vote, and he can't stoop that low.
Right.
So
you know, look, I know this is not on the list of topics today.
we'll
but
put it there.
I want to make sure that we give the due that is supposed to be received by a great American, and you just introduced his name to some of our viewers, and it's hard to believe this, but I think it's probably some of the folks that are watching this show, they may not even know who Glenn Browder is, and he's one of the greatest Americans that has ever lived, and one of the finest public servants that was ever in Calhoun County. He was a professor of political science at Jacksonville State University, did his undergraduate work at Presbyterian College in South Carolina, chose to work at Jacksonville State, became department head for the College of Political Science, was a mentor to our Congressman, Mike Rogers, was a mentor to me, even though I didn't even attend Jacksonville State University. I was mentor to dozens of other people, including former Lieutenant Governor and Governor Jim Folsom. He made a significant difference at Jacksonville State University, but he chose to offer himself for election to the Alabama legislature, where he served for 4 years, from 1982 to 1986. And then from January 1987 until April of 1989, he served as Alabama's Secretary of State. Did a tremendous job in passing election reform, campaign finance reform. Just one of the finest men that you'll ever have the privilege to meet. He and his wife, Becky, raised an outstanding daughter and just made a lot of difference for a lot of people for a long time. And now he's enjoying his retirement. And I think it's important to make sure that we remember those public servants who dedicated their life to improving the quality of life for all of us. And we're very appreciative to Congressman Browder and the service that he made as Alabama's 3rd Congressional District Representative from April of 1989 to January the 3rd of 1997. But he remains a friend to Ken and to me today, and we want to thank you, Congressman, for what you've done.
Wow, I didn't know he was going to do all that, but I'm glad you
Yes,
did,
sir.
because I don't know those dates. I just know he helped me a lot. He helped me get a bill through Congress for the prisoners of war.
Yes, sir.
That is on the books. Ex-prisoners of war go to the VA. They went from down here to up here in priority because of Glenn Browder. But anybody that's out there watching that knows Glenn, tell him that John Merrill and I were talking about him in a good way today. And I'm appreciative that all politicians are not bad. And when we can sit here off the top of our head and just tell you the good things that a congressman did for his constituents, speaks volumes of who Glenn
Ken,
Browder
I
is.
also think it should be noted, I didn't even say this because it wasn't important, but Glenn Browder is a Democrat. He's always been a Democrat. He was a Blue Dog Democrat when he was in Washington, but I think it should be remembered that it's not about the party, it's about the public service, it's about the philosophy of the elected official. And he, more than most of the people that we've talked about that have been in elective service on this show before, has exemplified what we want in a public servant.
Absolutely, and to call somebody like that a friend, I've always spoke highly of. I can't think of anything. I never even thought about him being a Democrat, but I knew he was, and I forgave him for that a long time ago. But no, that's dude. If you see Glenn Browder, tell him that we speaking highly of him, and that we say we're better for him serving, and the community that he's in, there's still people that are getting advice from,
Absolutely
free,
they are.
not-
And we want you to know that we're better for you watching this show and for you interacting with us and letting us know your thoughts about how we're sharing the word with you each and every week. We'll see you again next week on Brainstorming America.